I'm Dustin.
And I'm Genevieve, and we're Airbnb Superhosts, and this is our Portland tiny house. So our tiny house is located in our backyard. We live on the property. It's 216 square feet. It's located at the very back of the property, so it has its own private entrance, which is great for guests. We're standing on the patio of the tiny house, but directly in front of us is our urban chicken coop, which is great because our guests always love sitting on the patio and just kind of watching the chickens. They're really fun and kind of funky. I think urban chickens are sort of just a new thing. Not a lot of guests have had experiences with that, but they love being woken up by them, running out and grabbing an egg and frying it up for breakfast. It's really cute. Sometimes we worry that people are gonna be like put out by it, but I think it's actually a reason why. A lot of people will message me and say like, I was gonna book your Airbnb, but then I saw the chickens and it totally like sealed the deal, you know? Being an Airbnb host gives us a lot of freedom too, to do the things that we feel passionate about. So it's allowed us to travel a little bit more from time to time. So yeah, that freedom to just express ourselves, but also a little bit of extra financial freedom has been big too.
We purposely kind of set up this space to be able to have this cozy nook and our cozy nook. And so we have a little bit of a privacy fence. It's, you know, we have a fairly young cherry tree that kind of separates it as well. When you're in this space, you can't really see over into that space and vice versa. We have a nice, beautiful garden. Right now during the winter, it's lost some leaves, but during the summer and spring months, it creates a nice foliage that also protects those windows. So you can wake up with the windows all open and your blinds open and be completely comfortable that space is yours. And same thing for us. We can wake up in a beautiful, you know, scenario with our windows open and know that our space is ours as well.
So why don't we go inside?
So welcome, here we are. This is the Portland tiny house. Right now, you basically come right in, we're in the kitchen. It's a very small kind of kitchenette. The idea that this space has, or the envision that we had, was that happy to be able to utilize this as a full kitchen. We do have some like hot plates and things like that, but the idea is this is pretty minimal because Portland is known for its food and its food scene. We love that you're here, but also get out into the Portland, see the sights and the beauty of Portland.
So one thing that people love about our kitchenette is we've all these collected beautiful ceramics. Some have been collected from different vintage shops in the area, and then others have been lovingly made here in Portland. So like this coffee mug is actually made by a local artist, Katie Von Lehman, and she's one of our really lovely good friends, and she just makes the most beautiful ceramics. So these kinds of touches people tend to love, and then I'll get messages like, where did you get all of these beautiful ceramic mugs? So yeah, and then I can direct them to these fun places in Portland where they can take a piece of Portland home with them. In terms of the kitchenette space for hosting, we have an electric tea kettle and a French press. We also have a pour over. So yeah, like however you want to make your coffee, whether it's a pour over style or in the French press, you can grind up some beans, heat up some water, and then voila, you're done. And then the other thing too is we often leave a bunch of fresh tea bags in here as well for guests to use. So it's just like the perfect cozy thing to have your cup of coffee in the morning outside on the patio, or a cup of tea at night to kind of end your day.
So originally, like I said, this was just a garage. It was a tiny garage that, I mean, you couldn't really fit a car in, and we never used it for that. I mean, we have street parking or whatever. And so originally when we bought the house, it was like, can this space turn into a space that family and friends could come? Because our normal house is just pretty small to stay in. You're sleeping on the couch. And so then we started investigating into that as far as like, what would that look like? What would that cost be? And is it possible? We found out through the city that this was originally permitted as a livable space. And so during World War II, they had a thing called Wartime Code Ordinance. And it was, they didn't have enough housing. There was a housing shortage back then. And so it was a way to convert spaces quickly to be able to have livable spaces, which was basically a tub, you know, to wash yourself and a heating source. I mean, when you hear that, you just kind of like daydream or whatever about like who was in this space at that time and stuff like that. So it kind of gives it its own life.
Yeah, so as you come into the door of the tiny house, right immediately to your right is tucked away our little bathroom here. It's small, but it's got a lot of personality in terms of these special touches that we added. Being a host, I think, through Airbnb, guests always kind of want something a little different and fun and unique. It's still got that white, bright, light feeling, but to add a little bit more texture too, we added a white hexagonal tile, and then we found this tiny sink at the Rebuilding Center, which is a reuse store here in Portland. It's probably the smallest sink I've ever washed my hands in, but it's cute and it fits the space. And then a lot of people ask about the mirror too, because it actually has a frame where you can set stuff inside the mirror itself, so it gives you a little bit more storage, and that's just a fun light component, very modern. The other thing I love about the bathroom is our long, beautiful hanging philodendron in the corner. Just gives that like pop of green and nature. And then we just have a really basic 3x3 shower that you can go in, get a hot shower before you head out into Portland and check out the city.
So then this is the, you know, pseudo little closet space. This was actually a really good addition where when we were coming into building this place, we still were not very versed in tiny house spaces, and this wasn't necessarily something that we completely thought about, if I remember right. And so this was definitely a good addition whenever we were talking with an architect, you know, the person that designed some of this stuff, of you need a space. And so that's whenever we really kind of try to make this as minimal as we could, but also maximize that. So adding some of these higher shelves of, you know, auxiliary stuff. So sometimes, you know, we'll have an extra blanket or, you know, extra, you know, toiletries and stuff like that. So if in the event somebody runs out of something in the middle of the night, they'll have access to that. And then your typical things that you would use, such as towels and iron, things like that. And then just a nice space to hang some, you know, clean clothes and whatnot. And, you know, we really love that, you know, we're able to unfold this, plop up your suitcase on there, and then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and also easily accessible.
So we have been Airbnb Superhosts for 5 years now. We started back in 2015, and I think the main reason why we're excited was to share the space with a bunch of people, but also to like meet people from all over the globe as we were fulfilling this Airbnb host role. People are just so friendly, and they also, like in those summer months when we do get a lot of back and forth, like we just run into people in the yard or whatever, they want to ask us questions about the tiny house, and they want to know what tiny house living is all about. And so there's that curiosity of like, could I live with less? And a big thing that people always comment on is how well appointed the space is too. They're like, it has everything you need and nothing you don't. And that's like, I kind of feel like that's really core in the way that we would like to live, because our society is so like, buy this and this will make you happy. But when it comes down to it, like we need very little to actually be happy and live our daily lives. And then it also incentivizes you to go out into the world and experience more because you have this cozy space to come back to. So we actually most times don't have a lot of interaction with guests because they're out in Portland, they're exploring, they're enjoying the city. Yeah, it's just like sharing this like kind of tiny vision, and I think it's something really special.
Yeah, and I think that's the key too, is with that, like the idea of sharing, which is, you know, that's the thing is when our dog Baxter is running around, you know, when we let him out here or whatnot, people enjoy that. You know, and obviously we have conversations beforehand to let people that we have a kid that's free range, and we have chickens that are free range, and we have a dog that's free range.
But they do like it. Like, we thought people would kind of be put out, but they often are like, oh, I'm missing my dog. And they get excited to see the dog. And like when we first got our cat, he was a kitten and he was running around outside, and we have pictures of one of our guests like snuggling with our kitten. And she ended up coming back and living in Portland, and we would go out for coffee and hang out, and so made like kind of a new friend because of this animal that we had running in our yard. It's not a hotel. It's like, it's a community. It is. Like, being an Airbnb host is being part of a community.
As you kind of continue that flow through, you know, you kind of come to the corner of this countertop. And the idea of this space is we had kind of two options. One was to kind of have it like a galley straight, or kind of bring it to an L-shaped. And we really kind of thought through that in terms of, you know, the idea of typically you're going to be coming with 1+, and that 2 people can cozily sit here, have some breakfast, drink some coffee, whatever it is, conversate while, you know, somebody's making some coffee, so you feel interconnected, and kind of making the space usable, but also, you know, having a good flow of being able to have, you know, extra space kind of coming into the bedroom space, because it all kind of bleeds together.
I like the way that it makes it a little cozier, kind of gives the separation between the kitchenette nook and then also the bedroom. And we loved adding these hanging pendants, so you get a little bit more direct light right above. Yeah. So even if you brought your laptop and you want a little space to work, that's a great addition to just have a dedicated spot. So even though it's a small space, we really wanted to maximize the utilitarian nature of the kitchen, and then this just little build out right here.
Yeah, and even into it, the one thing that I was kind of nerding out on whenever we got to it was kind of like how our heating works, which same thing, you know, like utilizing all the space. If you have like wall heaters or baseboards, you just lose that space. And so one of the comments we had, whenever our electrician came in and we talked about losing that space, was doing a high wall heater. Because now we have all this space where you're not concerned about somebody sitting here and getting burned, or you can't utilize that space at the floor because of a floor baseboard heater.
Okay, so coming into the bedroom space, one of the things that just runs throughout the entire house is this vaulted ceiling with these exposed beautiful beams. This was something that we added to the house after the fact. When we first moved into the house, there was a little bit of a lofted kind of storage space that we took out and re-added these beautiful beams. They add warmth and coziness, but also with the high ceilings, it just really makes you feel like you're in this spacious kind of like lovely kind of airy setting. And I don't know, there's something about a tall ceiling in a small space that really gives you that sense of like, I'm not all cramped in here. I love it. I wish we had it in our main house, actually. It's something we've talked about adding. And then coming into the bedroom space, there's the bed and some side tables. We have all of these beautiful weavings. They really add some texture, a pop of color. This one was bought from overseas. A couple of these other ones were thrifted more locally. So this one was from a thrift store that used to be just down the block, and this other one in the corner here. I loved this one specifically. It has some really bright colors. So when I saw that, it just felt perfect to integrate into this space and just making it feel cozy. Same with this little throw pillow. It brings in that weaving texture. And then if you come down to the side of the bed here, we've got a basket full of sort of Portland guides, sort of how to, what is Portland, where to go, what to do. There's hiking guides and guides about how to get around the city too. A lot of our guests will rent a bicycle to bike around, so we have bike maps down there as well. We've also got a little Bluetooth speaker, so if you've got your laptop or your phone, you can connect that up to some music and just have, you know, a cozy little space where you can have a glass of wine and be listening to some music. And it makes it...
Or a dance party.
Yeah, or a dance party. Just little tiny dance party. Why not?
And then one thing that we definitely took in consideration was like that light and how it affects the space, with it being, you know, small and cozy, but also feeling as large as we could. And so one of the good elements that I feel that you brought in was adding, you know, we added 2 LED strips across the top of these beams, that at night you can have all the other lights off, and it just creates like a nice warm welcome versus any stark
Yeah, it sort of feels like a glow.
Exactly, yeah, it totally, and it is a glow
to the feel.
I mean, the few times that we've actually stayed in this space, that's the part that I enjoy, is when you're sitting on the bed and you're looking out and you can see the stars outside the garden, and it's starting to get dusk, and you just have these lights on, and it just creates a good glow and a good warm feel, right? I mean, it's constantly that idea of like making this warm.
In a tiny space, I think lighting is key.
Yeah.
So you don't feel cooped up in this dark hole. You want something that feels like bright and welcoming, and even outdoors we added string lights so that people can feel really welcomed when they come into the space, and you can see them in the bedroom looking outside. So it just kind of adds that magical element to the space as well.
Yeah.
Being an Airbnb host, it's allowed me to completely quit my full-time job and spend time with our young daughter, who was 5 when we built this, and now she is 11. So I've had a lot of time to, like, you know, show up for school activities and volunteer and just be physically a little bit more active. And so I'm able to offer her that, because this has supplemented my income hosting. Especially with the pandemic right now, that's been huge. Having this ability to still host guests and help them feel safe and cozy in a space while being able to maintain, I mean, because a lot of parents are trying to work full-time and school their children, and that took a huge amount of pressure off me to just be able to, like, focus on this sort of different life that we're all having right now.
Yeah. The idea of having people that you don't know in a space that is kind of your safety space, right, is kind of scary. It can be scary. And that was one of the comments that we had originally, was how is that going to affect our space? But I think that also really kind of ties into who we are and what we believe in, which is that idea of community, right? Like mutual aid community, you know, that we also have a daughter, right? We want her to see differences in the world, you know, and that's what we enjoy about being able to host with Airbnb, is that, you know, somebody can come from Australia who's gonna have an accent, somebody can come from Nigeria who's gonna have an accent and not look like my daughter or me or my wife, and being able to see that and hear that and normalize that the world is a beautiful place.
It really opens us up to being vulnerable and allowing us as being Airbnb hosts to open our space up and share our home with people. And I think that makes people feel somewhat cared for. And we honestly haven't had bad experiences hosting through Airbnb. You know, there's stains and spills and things get broken, but people come into the space and they realize, like, I'm in someone's home, like, this is really special. And someone's trusting me to take care of their home and their space, and it's sort of like, I don't know, to me it's like giving people a warm hug. Like, it feels so good when people come back and say that the space felt so light and bright and airy, and it made me want to, like, maybe declutter my own space or feel like I could live with less. So, like, inspiring people and making them feel held and, like, taken care of in a way, that feels like really, really good. I think that overpowers the idea of feeling like, oh, they're just strangers in our backyard. It goes back to that community sense of, like, just enjoying people.
Thank you for watching our video and for stopping by Tiny House Expedition. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And for more tiny home tours and stories, click the videos below.
And join us on Patreon for bonus content,
including face-to-face conversations with us. We hope to see you there.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.